Hello and welcome back. It's time for Chit Chat with two T's. As usual, I am your host and counseling psychologist, jvaldez. And with me today, I have the pleasure of having our guest, Trinay Thomas, who is a social worker and also the founder and CEO of the Good Healing Firm, which you're going to hear a little bit more about later. But first, let's welcome her. Hi, Trinay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you so much. It is our pleasure to have you here on Chit Chat. So maybe before we get into the show, you can tell us a little bit more about you.
Me. Oh gosh. Let's see. I am someone who absolutely loves serving others. That's who I am. I love family, fun, food. I am someone who really enjoys being a daughter, being an aunt, being a cousin. All of those things are, central in my life. But outside of that, I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm an assistant professor at Rutgers University. I'm a dual citizen of the United States and Trinidad and Tobago.
Hey!
And still here in Trinidad. I'm just really glad to be here and to spend time with family and my staff here at the Good Healing Firm.
Yes.
Because, but I'm just, that's just a little bit about me. I love, all of those things. Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy to have you. And I love that when I asked you to tell us a little bit about you, you started with things that had nothing to do with what you do.
Yeah.
That is so lovely.
Because at the end of the day, before your career begins.
Yeah.
And then after your career ends, what do you identify yourself as? You know what I mean?
Are you here for me today? Is this a session for me? Because why are you speaking to my spirit? That's amazing.
It's a session for all of us, including myself.
Which is what we like to envision or imagine Chit Chat to be, a session for all of us. I'm stealing that. That's lovely. So it's so nice to hear about you, and we love that you are proudly claiming your Trinidad and Tobago citizenship and heritage. We love that. We always love that.
100%.
Well, when did you were you born abroad?
Yes, my older sister and I were born abroad, and my parents came to the U.S. to study international scholarships, and then we moved back to Trinidad. And then my younger sister was born here, and my sisters and I started school here, and then eventually we moved back to the U.S. So we were kind of back and forth for a little bit,
right?
But I have a lot of fond memories of being in school. At Bishop's MC Junior School.
Big up to Bishop's.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good memories of being at the junior school and, lifetime friendships. And I still have family here. My father is still in Trinidad. So still actively grounded and connected. Yeah.
That is beautiful because when I went to school abroad at, the Howard University.
Yeah.
Right?
Both alumni.
It's just the bond, the connection, Trinay. I sense it. That's why it's so nice, That's why it's so nice because, your parents from Trinidad, you were born, and your parents went to Howard. That's why. But I remember being, at school there, and I feel like my Trininess has never been more salient in my identity than when I was at school abroad. So it's so nice to know that even though it wasn't necessarily foreign for you being in these States, because that is also home to you, that, you still feel the strong sense of connection to this part of your identity. That's really nice.
Absolutely. And, I definitely think I love our culture.
Yeah.
That's just the bottom line.
It's pretty good.
I just think it's great.
It's pretty amazing.
I
Yeah.
think it's great and kind of boastful about it. Boastful about, yeah, I mean, boastful about our culture. Not so much about me, but
Right.
our
Of course.
culture.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I just think we're awesome people. I don't know. That's it.
And we do. Like, we really are the best.
Yeah.
So, how did you even get into social work?
Wow, that's an interesting question. And you know, I think when I was like in my early 20s and I was in college, people just felt comfortable talking to me. That's kind of how it started.
I mean, I can attest to it. You're like very easygoing. You have a talk to me vibe.
I do?
You do. Yeah, it's very easy to speak with you.
So I like listening to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people like talking to me. It worked, you know, and I think it was kind of that simplistic and it started off very organically.
Yeah.
And then I'm, you know, from a little girl, my mother, really sat me down and spoke to me because I'm very intuitive.
Right.
And I didn't know what that meant or what that represented, but my mother was kind of like, okay, we're gonna have to do something about this, you know, kind of thing. You know, so my mother encouraged me to lean towards social work, and I had a very cookie cutter, very superficial concept of what social work is.
Right.
You know, and so I was not really that interested. So I
thought that sentence was going to end.
No, I just wasn't really that interested. I was like, where are we going with this? I'm not, no. And then after doing research and understanding, social work is very broad, it's very expansive.
Yeah.
And it's also something where, you know, I think the social work profession doesn't market themselves very well. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people tend to pigeonhole social work as just only working with child protective services or working with like children's authority and all these sorts of, you know, these constructs, and not the expansive work in terms of, you know, doing policy advocacy and psychotherapy. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had to do the research and educate myself on the expansiveness of the profession.
Wow.
And then after that, I was interested in pursuing my master's in social work.
Okay, so your first degree wasn't in social work, or was it also in social work?
No, it wasn't. My bachelor's, I have a bachelor's of science in criminal justice from the Rutgers School of Criminal Justice. Yeah, so I wanted to be a criminologist, but you know, but I did my internship and I was like, I'm so glad I did an internship. Internships are so helpful because I was like, oh yeah, this is not for me. Yeah. You know, and towards the end of my bachelor's, I realized that social work was definitely for me. You know, you're learning yourself and you're discovering, you know, your path.
I think that's beautiful.
So so that's kind of how I navigated into my master's degree. You know, is in social work. You know?
Okay, because I talk to some young people, and whenever I do, I say it's okay if you're not too sure what you're doing now. Because you don't have to stay on what you've chosen right now. You know, if this is what you like and you pursue that, and then you get into it and you realize it's not quite what you thought it would be, or you feel like it's not a good fit, there's nothing that prevents you from changing course, which I think was not necessarily the message that people, you know, around my generation we would have got when we were in school. It was kind of like, you need to know what you're going to do. You know, you need to know so you could study that and choose the right subjects and then go off to university. But I think as time has gone by and the world has changed so much, the landscape of what you can and cannot do has changed so much, you know, that these children now, they really are in a beautiful space where they could really literally do just about almost anything.
Sure.
You know? So thank you for sharing that with us. And I know that you have a lot more on your plate. So before we get into that, I kind of actually want to go into our first segment, which is what's in your cup. Or if you don't have a cup, that's okay. Right? So in my cup, I have because I really like tea and I like herbal tea. So my friend, my very good friend Rachel, she's one of my best friends. Shout out to you, Rachel. She got me this beautiful blend of tea. It is green tea, chamomile,
Okay.
lavender, and
Mhm.
I think rose or rose hip. Yes.
Nice.
So it
Oh
is
wow.
lovely. It smells great. I put a little honey with that,
Yeah,
and
that's nice.
I'm set. I'm set. So I
Very
feel
cool.
really good about that. Yes. What do you
So
have over on your end?
on my end, so first I want to say I love teas.
Okay.
Um, and my favorite tea is Lady Grey.
Lady
And
Grey.
Lady
I've never
Grey.
heard of that before. I know Earl. I know
Yes,
her
we all know
husband. I don't know
Earl.
her.
We all know Earl, but Lady Grey tastes so much better. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it really is. It's it has a nice flavor
Mm-hmm.
that it's distinct, whereas the Earl Grey, I find that it has more of a I don't know if it's, I don't know, it has a more of a it needs to steep for a bit.
Yeah.
But I do find it has more. Lady Grey has more of a fruitier taste, but
Okay.
not like not an overt fruitier taste. I
Yeah.
don't really like fruit teas.
Yeah.
Um, but my mother has a tea party every year, and she's all different types of tea. So we're really into tea. But I know tea is an active part of our culture.
Yes. We
Yeah.
need
So
tea.
I'm a tea person, totally. But I think but I'm a tea person, but I'm a tea person usually when it's cold. So right now yeah.
Understandable.
So right now
Understandable.
I have some water right now. But
Well,
I
water's good.
really water's good. But yeah, I love tea.
Okay.
Yeah, I come from tea people, so
And tea people are the best people. I don't care what you all say, coffee people. Anyway,
yeah, I think it's better than coffee to be
I
honest.
think so too. It is what it is. Like you just can't fight the fact that it's better.
Mhm.
So that's what is in your cup, literally. What about figuratively? What's in your cup? What's going on with you?
Oh wow, what's going on with me? Um, I am assistant professor at Rutgers University, and that's what I do full
Oh.
time
Hmm.
at the School of Social Work. Teaching, I'm always teaching and working, and I'm the associate director of the practicum office there, and
Okay.
so that's what I'm doing full time. And then in the evening, I'm running my private practice, right? So those are some of the things that are, I guess, in my cup. And then spending time with family and being with
Yeah.
family and enjoying family. So that is, yeah, yeah. So kind of balancing
Cup.
everything.
Yes.
Kind of balance everything. Yeah.
And how is the how do you balance being are you a full-time assistant professor at Rutgers?
I
Okay.
am.
So you're doing it
Yes.
full time and then you have your private
Yeah.
practice, and your
Yes.
private practice is also has dual citizenship. Yes?
So I'm licensed in New York. I'm licensed in New Jersey. I'm
Right.
licensed in Connecticut. I'm licensed in Florida, and I'm a registered psychiatric social worker here in Trinidad and Tobago. And
So
so
you
we
heard
have
that,
plans.
guys. You can go to the states, in those states, and see her, and you can come right
Yeah,
here in Trinidad and see her.
that's it. And we make it easy for everyone. We practice 100% virtual, so make it
Wow.
easy for clients. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
One of the benefits of COVID.
One of the massive benefits of COVID, I think
Yeah,
mental health, the trajectory of mental health has changed and shifted, and the provision of
drastically.
services is different now,
Yeah.
right? It actually shifted the infrastructure in the marketplace
Yeah.
in different places, globally. Yeah,
And that works.
yeah,
And it
yes,
works.
it
So
does. Yeah.
how are you managing your job and your private practice? Is that
Yeah.
challenging for you?
Mhm. So it gets pretty hectic. It gets pretty
Mhm.
hectic. I like to say that there's some days where it's like balanced out, and other days it is extremely hectic.
Yeah.
So I do have an assistant that helps me,
Oh, great.
um, and and the thing about it is, number one, I needed an assistant. Number two, I needed to make sure that that was solidified. And number three, I wanted somebody in the profession. make
Right.
things so much
Yeah.
easier. There are a lot of
Yeah.
things I don't have to explain.
Right.
And my assistant is wonderful. And they're in the profession, and it just works. It
Yeah.
works. And it helps me stay grounded what my schedule is for the day, what my schedule is for the week.
Right.
And I also make sure that I rest, right? So that I sleep, that I do fun stuff. Coming to Trinidad is, meeting with my staff. I'm spending time with family.
Yes.
But we also went to Las Cuevas,
Hey.
yeah, so we did that, and we also went to Tobago. And so whether it's resting or sleeping or going to the beach, so really integrating these things.
Yes. Yes.
To my experience, because I know for me, and I speak for my family dynamic. My mother was always like, if you're sleeping, past 8 a.m., it's like, why are you in your bed?
Yes, you're wasting the day.
Like, what is this? And so what I've realized is, for me, I've had to really unlearn that and realize that sometimes you need to sleep because your body is saying it's time to rest. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and that's hard.
Yeah.
I think I'm teaching all of us.
It is difficult. Yeah. Especially when you said, you that's not the culture that you come from necessarily. And having to unlearn certain things and then learn new things. Yeah. Okay. But you're making it work.
Yes. And I do I take vacation. I take vacation, I take time. Or, for example, in my private practice is a group practice.
Right.
And so I'm not taking on any new additional clients personally.
Right.
But
the business.
I have a wonderful staff of therapists. And so they I'm glad to receive referrals so I can refer them.
Yeah.
Refer potential clients to them so that they can work and provide therapeutic services for clients.
So, Trinay, as well, I wanted to ask, being that your practice is, dual citizenship, right? Both in Trinidad and Tobago and in the US of A. Of course, I imagine there would be cultural differences in the clients that you see. Are there any major ones that stand out to you in terms of, the perception of mental health and even how people go about accessing those services?
What I can say is that cultural awareness, cultural responsiveness creates cultural safety.
Oh.
And I think it's really important for people to be knowledgeable about the type of people that they're working with and what is their location, their cultural location. Our private practice in the US, we predominantly work with a lot of Black and brown people in the United States that identify as first and second generation immigrants.
Okay.
That are from Haiti, they are from Nigeria, they're from Ghana, they are from Barbados, they're from Guyana, they're from Trinidad, they're from Tobago, they're from different parts of the Caribbean region, and also some of them are identify as part of some West African countries. I do have clients who identify as East Indian, but they are specifically Indo-Trinidadians.
Right. Okay.
Or Indo-Guyanese, or identify as Indo-Caribbean. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's this is reflecting the population we serve in the US.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, in the US. And so the therapists in Trinidad, they serve the clients in Trinidad, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
And I think there's value in that, there's power in that, and there's relevance in that. I do think nothing's wrong with having therapists that are from the US working with clients in Trinidad and Tobago, but I just don't think that is not the direction that we are looking to travel in. The therapists that we have that are from the US work with clients in the US because there's such a richness to the Trinbagonian culture that those therapists may not be aware of, and nothing's wrong with being culturally informed and positioning. But I also want to make sure that I'm accessing and investing and affirming the talent we have on soil.
That is deep, and I'm here for it. Because I think we underestimate that being here. Being in Trinidad and Tobago and working with clients locally, that may not necessarily be something that we consider, or that we think about, but you having to purposely be conscious of that, be cognizant of that, because you are aware of the importance of it. And as you said, it creates that level of safety within the therapeutic space. So thank you for bringing that to light.
Yeah. You want to make sure that I'm very mindful of projection of a global north mindset in a global south
which
state.
Is easy to do because that's how we've been socialized.
Yes. And, but I also think it is about how can I create that environment in my private practice where people can feel comfortable to talk, to connect, to share different parts of themselves, private parts of themselves, with someone who is someone from the global south. And or let's be specific, from the Caribbean region,
right?
And they can work with them. I think it's great.
I think it is fantastic. That is great work that you're doing. So that's the wonderful work that you're doing in your private practice. How do you bring that level of awareness in your professional role as assistant professor?
I do. The work that I do is very different at the school. So, I'm working with master's level students, securing practicum placements for them specifically in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut area. So those themes don't travel into those areas, because it's just two different types of positions that I do have. But there are opportunities for me to talk about when I am teaching, when there's specific subjects, and having up to talking about the immigrant experience, or the Black immigrant, or the Black immigrant experience, and the Caribbean immigrant experience within the context of the New York City region. I do share about that in the classes that I teach. So that's something that is important.
And you feel like it's well received? There's a level of understanding that your students are able to get, or do you feel like they struggle with that a little bit? Especially for those who, I guess, are nationals of the US.
Yeah. Curious. Most of the time, they don't encounter someone who is a faculty member, who's a therapist, whose private practice is international.
Right.
I also find that some of them are not really familiar with the Caribbean region, or specifically the Trinbagonian culture, except in very, very light, superficial ways.
Yeah.
So most of the time, the responses I get are very questions, but they're curious and respectful. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that they're respectful. That's an important piece. And I love that you're being a cultural ambassador in your workspace.
I don't know if I am a cultural ambassador, but
I mean, that's how I see it. I mean, bringing that level of awareness to a particular region, to our culture in particular, even if it's within the context of mental health, that's ambassador stuff, my friend.
Maybe.
It's not your intent. It's a beautiful byproduct, I believe.
Yeah.
So having this wealth of experience and having that beautiful dual experience growing up in both nations. Are there any pet peeves that you have? Not just about that, but I guess in general about mental health or the perception of social work, because now we're going to talk about what boiled your water. So we're talking about what has upset you or what bothers you on a yeah, like, because we all know that dealing with those things is an integral part of mental health as well.
Oh wow. So that's an interesting question. So when I am in the U.S. and this is where I'm going to talk about my identity or my culture, mental health intersect. Yeah. Especially in New York, particularly in Brooklyn, they have very strong in New York City. There's and they have a very strong Caribbean community. So if I'm there and Trinidadians are Trinbagonians are very quick to be like, well, where are you from in Trinidad? Everybody brings out their metric stick. They want to know how connected are you?
That's
how deep are your Trini roots?
Yes. Are you really Trini?
Let me measure.
Yeah.
Let me measure you. And my name, is kind of like, well, okay, when I say my name and I say my name is Trinay, they're like, yeah, we were all Trini, but what's your name? So they immediately don't process that's my name.
Your name.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. But then the next question is, where are you from?
Yeah.
In Trinidad. And the last place that we lived for the last few years that we were in Trinidad was in St. Anne's.
Okay.
And so I always pause. I always have a hesitancy. Yeah. So then when they see the pause, they're like, you're not really from Trinidad. You need to think about where you are from. You take it long. But my pause is always because it's always disappointing and very frustrating for me. And I got quite annoyed the response, because usually it's like, oh, you live by the madhouse. Okay, you used to live by the madhouse. Okay. So as a social worker, as a licensed clinical social worker, as somebody who engaged in psychotherapy, there is still a very strong, ingrained, hard concepts, ideas, labels, stigmas about mental health within the Caribbean diaspora.
Yes.
And in the Caribbean region. And in Trinidad and Tobago. And when people say that, you're sustaining the stigma.
Yeah.
The other thing is last year when I was here, I went to the hospital. Okay. The St. Anne's Psychiatric Hospital. And I can honestly say I really enjoyed meeting with one of the social workers there. But it was hard to be there.
Yeah.
It was hard to be there because the environment is, even just the care of the campus. Yeah. There's not a lot of care taking care of the campus and what it looks like, the structure. And so it's like, oh gosh, it's almost like it's a reflective of what people think about mental health. Yes, it's very hard to say. I mean, people may say, well, what you're saying, it's not your place to say that, or it's very critical, but there are a lot of issues. There's a long damaged history of mental health issues globally. Yeah. And in each region and each country has its own history. And and people are exploring how to rework, reimagine, recreate, and some people are doing it and some people are not. And so even just mere interactions with Trinbagonians outside of Trinidad and Tobago, they're still stuck in this space. And so even here, when you're talking about, when I mentioned psychotherapy, some people don't know what psychotherapy is. When I'm having clients or conversations with potential clients, they know counseling. Yeah. And so I do explain what the counseling is more of a short-term approach. Yeah. Psychotherapy is a long-term approach.
Longer term.
And then I explain the differences. And so I'm happy to talk, to connect, to educate. but there's just so much to be done. But everywhere, globally, there's so much
Yes.
to be done. I don't want to
Yeah.
highlight that. Oh well, it's only it's only in Trinidad and Tobago. No, there's a lot of work to be done in the U.S. as well, as they continue to pretend that they're not investing in mental health, like to highlight about mental health. So every place, every space, every country, and every region has its own work to do regarding mental health.
Yep, we definitely have a lot to do here. I mean, as we mentioned before, I think one of the benefits of COVID was that people were pushing it more to the forefront. For some people, it was a genuine push. For some people, it was just, I think that this is what we're supposed to do, especially from like an organizational perspective. Having worked also within the EAP environment, employee assistance provision, you got a lot of that. So we have an EAP, but do we really want to use it? Do we really want to hear what might actually be beneficial for the clients? Maybe not. We just know that we want to be able to say we provided the service because that's what you're supposed to do as a good employer. So I do think that there have been pros and cons, of course, coming out of that. I personally have actually never visited the hospital. I've never visited St. Anne's. But what I'm hearing from you is indicative or representative of what a lot of people have actually said about the care of some of the patients there. So it really doesn't surprise me too much. What you're saying about that physical environment, I do think it's reflective of what is possibly occurring there. Because in Trinidad, still, I mean, for you're interacting with a lot of people in the diaspora, and one could even say, okay, well, you're not really home, so maybe your idea of it is stuck at that point when you left, 10, 15, 20, 40 years ago. All right, that could kind of be excused. But we have people who live here day in, day out. They've never lived abroad, and that is their perception of it as well.
Right.
That's the madhouse that, well, if you're in there, you don't really have much value because you're mad. So you're in there. So it doesn't really matter what the campus looks like because, right? You're not really, that's not important to you. So why should that matter? So
yes. Yeah. And I mind you, I didn't interact with any patients or anything like that. But the social workers I did interact with were wonderful. Well, I will say that. Wonderful. But it is a conversation that I think needs to kind of be discussed transparently about investment in mental health, in deconstructing, right? The stigmas and building the mental health infrastructure.
I think, especially because we're such a small island and we are a relatively young nation, and of course, we're talking about systems that have been in place for such a long time, and change on the surface, it looks like a lot of change has occurred, but in reality, there's still so much work to do, and a lot of the change that will occur really, well, it's two things. One, we are a very reactive society in Trinidad and Tobago. We're not very proactive. Usually things have to happen for us to then say, okay, how could we move from here? What do we do now? Because this thing has happened. So what do we do now as a result? So we are a reactive society. And the second thing is a lot of the time, people who may have the ability to encourage or to ensure that certain changes take place, is it beneficial to them for those changes to take place? So we do have a lot of, the government's supposed to provide and the government's supposed to do this, and they do have a responsibility. But as personal citizens, we also have a responsibility. As corporate citizens, we have a responsibility. But we also have that culture in Trinidad and Tobago where we tend to pass the buck. So it's a lot of work, and a lot of things are being done in silos, and a lot of it is positive. But a lot of it, we have work to do. So as Ricardo is saying, that's why we chit chat to help normalize mental health discussion. One of the aims, we want to present the mental health actual factuals, and we want to normalize this. Like, this should just be on this platform. Like talking about mental health should be as normalized and as easy as, did you see Usher's Super Bowl halftime performance? Like it should be part of everyday conversation, just like that.
Absolutely, and we are actively working in private practice to do that in our our own way. I mean, I know that we are launching our women's group at the end of this month, and we're really excited. And it's February 28th, and it's called Driven, and it's really focusing on it's a women's support group. And it's geared towards women in Trinidad and Tobago, but it's open for other women in the Caribbean region, and it's focused on anxiety and depression in the workplace. So it is for professional women who are experiencing anxiety and depression and how it manifests in the workplace. So we're excited about it. It's virtual, of course, because then it opens up opportunity for maybe people who are in Guyana or people who might be in St. Vincent and the Grenadines or Barbados that would like to join. People are welcome to come, and they're welcome in our space and join us. And we'll be starting off, like I said, that's our Wednesday, February 28th. And folks can reach out to our private practice to learn more about how to sign up.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. If anybody's interested, how do they sign up? What is the criteria? Is there an age limit?
Yeah, ideally, they've got to be, 18 and over.
Right.
Majority, we don't really necessarily, ideally would be, so it's going to be something between, 18 and, maybe 60 or 65. Right. For folks that are working, because people are still working at 60, 64, 65. That's the reality, right?
That is reality.
That is reality. So it is open to people above 18 and years old. And we've had like 4 virtual gatherings for people just to get to know us and our private practice and who we are. Right. And those have been great. And we touch upon the topics of what are the symptoms of anxiety, what are the symptoms of depression, how they manifest in the workplace. Yeah. Then we talked about family and work-life balance and the challenges of that. And then we had another gathering that. And then, so these are important things to talk about. We had another gathering and we talked about, menstrual and menopause equity and what does that look like in the workplace space.
That needs a group, actually. That needs a group. I have so many people coming to me and they're like, I'm not sure if I'm perimenopausal or what's going on. If I'm like, that needs a group. I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah.
And how does that show up in the workplace within the context of where depression and anxiety intersect with menstrual equity or menopause equity? And so that was a very interesting conversation. And so these are some of the things we're touching upon in this group space.
That's lovely.
So we encourage you to send folks to us. We would be happy to connect with them. The requirement is that they are in a working environment.
Yeah.
Right? So that they can talk about what's happening. But it's we have 2 experienced social workers that are clinically trained and giving space, and it's for 90 minutes every week. We're excited about it. So they can reach out to they can email us. I'm not sure, I can, let you know that it's info at the Good Healing Firm. Info at the Good
We'll definitely put that in the video, and we'll also put it in the description below so that persons can actually refer to it at any time. Whenever they look at the episode, they could get all of the Good Healing Firm's information so that they could, they could reach you whenever they look at this video. If it's especially like now it's airing 2 months from now, a year from now, anybody who looks at it, they'll be able to get the information from the Good Healing Firm. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And our website as well. So I did I'm happy to. Our website is goodhealingfirm.com as opposed to thegoodhealingfirm.com. It's goodhealingfirm.com. So we are really excited about what's in store.
I am excited for you. And you used two terms that I am not sure, I'm not very familiar with, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers may not also be as familiar with it, which is menopause equity and menstrual equity. Could you just give us like a brief synopsis of what those are?
So I am not an expert in these areas, but what I do know is that there are specific symptoms that come with menopause.
Yes.
Come with whether you're experiencing your menstrual cycle, and whether it's fatigue, whether it is if you're experiencing abdominal pain or abdominal discomfort, if your anxiety is heightened. If you are experiencing depression during a hormonal shift, if you're experiencing, hot flashes, I'm just sharing symptoms that may be reflective of, this is a menopause or menstrual. There's some women that may have, different types of disorders.
Yeah.
Some women may have fibroids, some women may have PCOS. So and expected to function and show up to work
normal.
And so and so what is it like? What type of pressure or stress are you under if you have taken sick days that are because of menopause or because of your menstrual cycle and any challenges or complications? Women who experience endometriosis, right? So these are things that we want to create a safe, supportive space for that, and talk about their thoughts, their feelings, the things that they're experiencing, what their workplace environment has. Do they have anything about that discusses menstrual or
I can tell you 98% probably of organizations don't touch that with a 10.
Sure. And I'm in a space where I'm premenopausal, and I know for my staff that I let them know very transparently, for my private practice, they need to know that our space is open and receptive to menstrual and menopause equity. And it also means if you are experiencing challenges with your menstrual cycle or menopause, you can let me know, and you can say, today is not a good work day for me. Today is not a good work day for me. And so it is part of the policies and procedures and handbook for our private practice. It's integrated in it.
That is wonderful. And I'm really hoping that after viewing this episode or listening to this episode, a lot of other, private practitioners or even just employers will take a page from that book, and incorporate that into their policy. A lot of people talk about a lot of things, but they don't necessarily want to put it into policy because they're afraid of what that would look like. So we can talk about it, sure, no problem, but put our money where our mouth is, and institute a policy around that.
Yeah, because we the different things about, in a work environment, we have, vacation days. Sometimes you may have something where they identify as personal days or leave days, or family leave, parental leave, maternity leave. These are all different types of days or a period of time that you may apply for and look for approval regarding things regarding health, whether it's you or a family member. But it's great if you have that vacation time or if you have that personal leave time. But what if it's not one of those times and it's day to day, and every month you're in a battle because you you've got a reproductive system that's saying, okay, I'm in distress, and I have my children, I've got my parents to take care of, I've got to put food on the table, I got to show up for work.
I have bills to pay.
Show up. I got bills to pay because they're always on time. So we're here for it.
We are definitely here for it. I'm very excited about your group, especially because I don't know a lot of groups in Trinidad and Tobago in your mental health space. So it's really nice that you are, creating that. I'm very much looking forward to hear, about it and, the offshoots of that, the growth. I'm already in my mind, seeing potential future collaborations with the Good Healing Firm and Equilibre Counselling and Consulting Services. I'm seeing it, Trinay. But I think it's really amazing what you're doing, and this is really, really good work as we move towards normalizing mental health. Ricardo is he said he shed a tear and gave resounding applause when you were talking about menstrual and menopausal equity, and he has already followed you on Instagram, and we are sure that our viewers and listeners will do the same. They're going to want to know more about you, and we do have listeners in the US as well, so this is definitely going to be great.
Really wonderful.
Yeah, so it's going to be great for them to be able to access someone like you who's licensed in so many different states, which is great, which is fantastic, because we know the insurance system works a little bit differently there.
It does, but I'm licensed in those specific states because there's a higher population of Caribbean community. That's right, of Caribbean communities or members of the Caribbean diaspora in those locations. It is strategic. It really is strategic. And working with people from the Caribbean region, regardless of their religion, their race, their ethnicity, what they identify as, regardless of their sexual orientation, they are welcome in our space.
Yeah,
they're welcome in our space.
Yeah, and that's beautiful.
So we're excited about a lot of different things, and we're one of those things that I believe that we're doing things slow, strategic, and steady.
That's how it has to be. Yeah.
There will
always be work for you to do. There's no need to rush. There will always be work for you to do.
Yeah, and we're excited about connecting. I'm excited about this opportunity to be on your show, because we are looking to partner with other private practices or just people who are social workers and psychologists that are in the field and may not have a private practice, but they're working in some of the various ministries serving our communities, and would like to refer clients.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, we're all about building network, because at the end of the day, I don't think everybody could do everything. And it's important to not try, because sometimes, we forget that, that principle of just, do no harm. So it's important to know, like, okay, I may not have this background in this, instead of me trying to Google it and say, I can treat you. Let me just Google real quick. I might be like, okay, this is not my area, but I know that Trinay has people, or she deals specifically with this. Let me refer you to this person. I think that's very easy for me to say as a professional, because I trust my network. I trust the network. So I think that's very, very important for us to maintain. So, earlier on you were talking about, living an integrated life, which is something that I absolutely I'm passionate about. I'm enthused about just the concept of an integrated life, the concept of balance. Those are principles that I really do try to live my life by, and also try to encourage my clients to do the same. And you talked about, going to the beach and ensuring that you rest, because normally at this time in the podcast, I would say, well, how's your mental health? Which would also include things like that. But maybe generally you could give us a sense of how you're doing in terms of your mental health.
I would say overall it's good. It's not perfect.
Right.
But I'm not seeking perfection. Because life is,
You better drop these gems today, Trinay.
Who's seeking perfection? I want to meet them.
Everybody.
That's a lot to live up to. And I don't know. Don't be disappointed with me, but I'll be happy with me. Okay?
Yeah.
I think if getting what you need is really important.
Yeah.
Getting what you need. I am a therapist, and very early in my master's degree program, they communicated to us to make sure you're in therapy. Make sure you're in therapy, because
Yes, have a
there are
therapist.
some clinical tools you can only learn by being a client.
Oh, yeah.
That is not provided in book knowledge.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree with it, because there's different dimensions to how you grow, change, and evolve as a clinician. And so the book knowledge is important, the exams are important, the papers are important. Completing an internship or practicum is important. Practicing is important with clients, but also being a client is important. I'm a therapist. I provide psychotherapy, I provide counseling, and I also receive it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because I also think that also helps to deconstruct and also addresses stigmatization as well. It also helps us normalize it. So I practice what I preach, and not
clearly,
not perfectly, but I have a Caribbean therapist. Like, I have a therapist of Caribbean descent in the U.S. and I'm finding a therapist that's that's part of the Caribbean diaspora is like finding a moving needle in a haystack, because there are not many of us.
Wow.
There are not many of us.
That's crazy.
There's not many of us at all in the United States. So that was its own journey. Glad I found the person. So I am somebody who, our practice provides psychotherapy, we provide counseling, and our therapists, we believe and receive that therapy and counseling ourselves.
I love that. And that's why you all should check out the Good Healing Firm, because they're on it. They know what they're about, and they're just making sure that you know what you're about too. Right? They're providing that safe space so we can all know what we're about.
Absolutely. And
I love that for us.
Like I always say, we don't provide, we don't provide perfect healing, but we provide good healing.
Listen, sometimes good is what you need.
Good is what you need.
Good is what you need. It is what you need. And I mean, I don't even think there's anything that could top ending on that note. So just one more time, can you just tell us how to find you?
Yeah, sure. Info at thegoodhealingfirm.com. Info at thegoodhealingfirm.com. And you can also go to our website, which is goodhealingfirm.com.
That's goodhealingfirm.com, not thegoodhealingfirm.com.
Yes, I was about to say that. So glad you did too. And you beat me to the punch. I love it. And so, we are here and we're excited to engage. We're excited to network with people in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean region. And we are launching Driven, our women support group, February 28th. Email us to find out more information.
Yes, please do. And you're on social media as well.
Yes, we're on IG. And on IG and Instagram, we are The Good Healing Firm.
Yes.
And on Facebook, it is the same. Facebook, we have a Facebook page, and it is also The Good Healing Firm.
Well, I feel good, and I haven't even, been in the Good Healing Firm, and I feel amazing. So if you want to feel amazing and you want to be driven, all right, make sure and contact Trinay and her team at the Good Healing Firm. This has truly been a wonderful conversation, a beautiful, enlightening discussion. Trinay, I am so grateful for you being able to make the time. I'm sorry we couldn't meet in person. That would have been lovely, but exactly, there is going to be a next time. We'd love to have you on again. You're officially a friend of Chit Chat, so we are happy to have you. Yes, and we are wishing you and the Good Healing Firm all the very best in your endeavors with Tribot and everything else that I know is going to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So excited to be here. Excited to connect again.
Yes.
And I'm just, this is a wonderful experience.
I'm happy that you enjoyed it. You're welcome. And well, that brings us to the end of today's episode, guys. So make sure and check out everything that you've heard here today. I hope that something resonated with you because, as usual, here on Chit Chat, we only deal with the mental health actual factuals, right? We don't tell any lies. Okay? So make sure, check us out. Enjoy this episode. Like, subscribe, share, of course, because we want to continue to spread the good news of mental health and, of course, the Good Healing Firm. All right. So for now, again, I am jvaldez, your counseling psychologist and host. Thank you again to our wonderful guest, Trinay Thomas of the Good Healing Firm. And until next time, we'll see you all. Normalize that mental health discussion. Talk about it. All right. So take care. Bye. And scene. Yay!